Hello and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. We're here for our review show, and we're joined by Rory Grugan, and we're going to look back at Rory's career after his landmark 100th appearance made against Mayo on Sunday. As usual, this podcast is brought to you in association with McKeever's Teamwear, proud suppliers of all Armagh GA merchandise. And as always, the link to their website is in the podcast description. So, Rory, thanks for joining us. And as I say, your 100th appearance there on Sunday. Did you ever think you were going to make 100 appearances for Armagh?
There's probably a few times I didn't, Sean. Seemed a long time ago now, looking back to 2011. And I suppose I didn't think I was probably going to make 100. It is a nice achievement to get there, but it definitely makes me feel a bit old.
And did you know about it before the game or anything, or is it something you would have been keeping track of?
I wouldn't have been keeping track of it, but it was actually Soupy Campbell. Me and him were talking about it the week before he had got word that he had made his. So we kind of figured out that I must have been too far away. And then obviously Shieldsy followed the following week. And then he had mentioned to me that he thought mine was this weekend. So I had kind of heard about it before the match. So it was a nice thing to think about, but obviously not too much of a distraction in terms of the actual game.
And it must have been a proud moment for you. I know in terms of the game didn't go Armagh's way, but a proud moment to reach such a landmark.
It is, yeah. I suppose it's a nice thing now that Armagh GA have done, started to recognise these players who made those landmarks. There's maybe one or two who missed out on it. I know Ian Farker there wasn't too happy. He might be well over the 100 mark at this stage, but no, it's a nice achievement. Like, obviously, when you start out as an inter-county player, you want to win silverware and bring trophies home, but these things are nice to be acknowledged as well.
We'll get Aidan recognised at some stage. He's over 100, but we'll get him when he's at 110 or 120 or so. I suppose Rory, is now the most enjoyable period you've had playing for Armagh, playing in the top division, playing against unbeaten some of the top teams in the country?
I'd say it probably is. Like, obviously I played Division 1 when I first started off in 2011, but I was very young and it probably was all a bit over my head, and I maybe didn't realise the period of maybe difficult years that we were about to go through. So I think these last sort of 2 to 3 years in terms of the development we've showed as a team, and like you say, getting back up to the top table in Division 1 and getting a full campaign out of this year is definitely the most I've enjoyed it. Like, and I've been lucky maybe to have not picked up any knocks or long-term injuries, that I'm enjoying my football. And things are going quite well for us as a team, like in general. Obviously a disappointing result yesterday, but hopefully we're still on a good upward curve.
And going back to the start, Rory, was playing for Armagh always the dream? Was this always something that you wanted to do and wanted to achieve?
Okay, I think it was. Like, obviously growing up as a young fella, I was the age where Armagh, or watching Armagh when they were so successful, from 99 right through the noughties. And that was just the level you wanted to be at. And then obviously it went through with development squad and stuff, and was lucky enough then to play at minor football and to win a minor All-Ireland. So that gave you the taste of winning and playing for Armagh and what it meant to represent your county. And it wasn't long after that, a couple of years, when I first got called into the team, and that was such a massive honour. And I suppose as the years go on, you try not to take that for granted, but like it really is what I've always sort of dreamed of as a footballer, and even had the honour for 2 or 3 seasons of being captain as well, something which I was very proud of as well. So definitely I would have to say that ever since I was no age, started off playing obviously with club, and then you just dream of playing for Armagh on the big days as well.
And not All-Ireland minor winning team in 2009. I think everybody on that team maybe got game time or got playing with the seniors at some stage, but there's maybe only 4 years still on the panel. I think it's yourself, James Morgan, Niall Rowland and Andrew Murnan.
Yeah, I think that's all that's left now. Like, obviously that's a good long time ago now, but like you say, most players were in and out at different stages. Like, and with successful minor teams, you always hope to take a couple in, and it's good even to have nearly a third of the team like still there as consistent squad members and still adding something to Armagh today. Like, it's such a big step up from minor to senior, and I always remember there was always references made to that minor team in terms of like when are they going to come through, and expecting that success to integrate. It just isn't quite as straightforward as that, and everyone's sort of paths are a wee bit different. Everyone's trajectory doesn't quite go the same, but it's good that a few of the lads are still remaining there from that year.
What was that breakthrough like? As you say, it's difficult for a team that is successful. There's a lot expected of that team, and you did make the breakthrough then in 2011. You made your debut in the McKenna Cup and carried in to make your league and championship debuts then after that. What's your memories from breaking into the squad on them first couple of training sessions, first couple of games as well?
I suppose it was a fairly, in at the deep end type of job once I went in at seniors. Like, I played minors, then went in and played a year or two on the 21s and got some exposure to Sigerson football as well with Queens. So in a way, I was able to take the steps that you maybe need to get up a senior into county. But like, looking even at how much the game has changed in those 10, 11 years, like in terms of physical preparation and what you're required to do in all other aspects of your life, it is a lot different. And looking back now, and when I see what like 19, 20-year-olds are like now, I probably wasn't fully ready for that. Now, it went fairly well for me in the first couple of games early on in the McKenna Cup, and I managed to start in some of the early league games against Dublin in a packed athletic grounds, and against Monaghan and even Kerry, in those early games. But it probably just caught up with me a wee bit. Like, I probably just wasn't ready. And it took me a long time to develop into like an actual seasoned, I suppose, inter-county footballer. Now, there's a bit of stunting in my development and that from years away due to my degree and stuff. I spent a year in France and then was back in 14 and then spent another year away in Liverpool doing my PGC. So it was a wee bit stop-start for the first, 5 or 6 years. So it was a bit whirlwind at the start and then very broken for the next 3 or 4 years in terms of my own career. And I'd only really kicked back into gear then when I came back into the squad in late 2015, start of 2016, where I nearly see it as almost a separate part of my playing career, where like I really separate those two things, where I started off in 2011 to really the second half of my career from when I was about 24, 25 on.
And just that 2014 year, Rory, that was one of the highlights in the last, couple of years for Armagh. And probably you burst onto the scene that year with the point against Monaghan that brought the game to extra time in the Ulster semi-final. Did you feel that was your first big moment on, the national stage?
Yeah, to be fair, it probably was. Like, I think I'd had some minutes in like a qualifier game in maybe 2012 or something. Like, I had a shoulder operation at the start of that season, so I didn't play much that year. And I think I got like 2 or 3 minutes in a qualifier game, and that might have been my championship debut. But even right up through in 2014, I hadn't started a championship game for Armagh, and I remember it was missed the Cavan game the day of the whole parade gate, and just got the call in the Monaghan game towards the end. I was in the last few minutes, and I remember Aaron Kiernan was down with a bad cramp in his calf, so wasn't able to take the free, and I ended up hitting it as another left-footed free taker. And I suppose, thankfully for me, it went over, and that just gave me the chance to get into the team then, like as a sub in most of the rest of the games for the rest of that good run up until the quarterfinal against Donegal. So I suppose I always say to people that you don't know when your chance is going to come. Like, you have to hang tight. It can be the strangest of circumstances that you're the one then on that any given day that gets their chance to go, and you have to be ready to grab it. Like, I was lucky that day that I was getting on, lucky that the free ended up being me that was taking it and that it went over, and it sort of all went from there. But you just, like I say, you just have to be ready to take your chance when it comes.
And you'd mentioned that you'd played Division 1 football before. You played against Dublin and Kerry and Mayo and the likes before, and you were one of the few before this season that had played Division 1 football. I know last year everybody got a taste of it, but I'm not sure, certainly as fans, it didn't feel like a real Division 1 campaign because you're only playing Ulster teams. This year everybody's got a chance, or they've played against the likes of Mayo and Dublin so far. Was there much of a difference? That's 11 years ago now, I suppose. What's the difference do you feel from being that, that youngster trying to break into the starting team to being one of the more experienced heads now?
Like I say, I think maybe just because I'm older now, obviously at 30 years of age, I'm one of the senior members of the squad. You take on a lot more in terms of how you think about the game and prepare for it. So it does feel so much different. Like, when I look back, I was 19, I hadn't even turned 20 in that year. And, you were just sort of riding the crest of a wave. I wasn't really thinking about it too much. I could tell that it was difficult, and physically it was hard in some of the games, like against Dublin that night in athletic grounds, or even against Kerry. I really struggled, and I got taken off just after half time. And that was kind of my last real chance that year. And I definitely would have noticed a big step up just for me personally. And maybe at that stage, Armagh as a team, we were maybe going down a bit in terms of our, some of those last remaining members of the Naughties team were just starting to retire. And whereas now, like, we feel that we've built the team under Geezer's tenure that is ready to compete at this level, having went through a few tough years trying to finally get back up to Division 1. So it does feel now that we're ready. And I suppose I've been saying in different interviews over the years that the more exposure you get to these big games, the better. When we played Mayo in 2019 in the qualifiers, when we played Monaghan last year in the championship, big games like that, you learn so much from them. Like, we're learning harsh lessons all the time. We get a couple of good results to start off, but even looking at the last two games, any sort of small mistakes are punished. With a real battle with Monaghan, and then another massive battle with Mayo yesterday. And it just shows that if you're not at your game, and especially in those closing stages, things can change so quickly, and the top teams punish you. So it's where we want to be. Like, you learn the harsh lessons, and you hope you learn from them and get better, and ultimately succeed. But like I say, it's sort of two different worlds nearly when I think back to how different it was 11 years ago and now for us as a team.
And is it satisfying for the likes of yourself, where you and Aidan Falker, Stephen Campbell, the boys that have been there through the not so good days in recent years, that you are now up at this level now, and you are showing that you can compete with the best teams in the country?
Okay, it is for a few years, we just were sort of up and down between 2 and 3 with a few tough days, and last days of the league campaign either being relegated or then not getting the promotion with a couple of tough results. But you wanted to believe that we could get back to the top level, and certainly Geezer believed in us. So it makes it all worth it. Obviously, we were toiling away at that stage, and all the time you're sort of trying to develop the squad. There was a lot of coming and going, but probably the big thing in the last maybe 4 years or so, say 3 years, is the consistency of the squad. There's very sort of small player turnover, and you're getting a real good group of players. Like, there's a mix of experience, like myself and, like you said, Soupy and Aidan and Stephen Sheridan and Mark Shields. These boys have been there, the last 7, 8, 9 years, and then a good core behind that, and then obviously young ones who've come in as well, even in recent years, like Tiernan Kelly, Charlie O'Brien and stuff. So we feel that there's a good mix there now, and a team that's ready to compete at this level. So I suppose it is a nice reward to know that the hard work you put in for those 5 or 6 years has got us here. But again, I'm sure, as you can imagine, that's not where we want it to stop. We want to keep pushing and to try and achieve something as a team.
Yeah, and this year you had a massive start to the season, and obviously beating Dublin and Tyrone in the first 2 games. Then the draw against Monaghan and Mayo has maybe reined fans in a wee bit, just to not get too carried away. Like Geezer has been saying it from the night you beat Dublin, not to be getting carried away. And I suppose it's hard for fans to get that perspective. Like, I'm sure in the changing room, you're saying that okay, you beat Dublin and Tyrone, but it's only January at that stage when you beat Dublin. So is it hard to keep away from the hype in that changing room?
I suppose it was a bit of a perfect storm, because with us being back in Division 1 for the first time, with there being full crowds again, and seems to be a serious interest in the National League nationally in terms of crowds and everything, and then given those 2 results, it was all a bit hectic maybe for those couple of weeks in terms of maybe just how the supporters and stuff were perceiving those wins. And there were 2 good results, don't get me wrong. It was good to be back in Croker, and there was a good atmosphere that night, and then a packed athletic grounds against Tyrone, a good battle. But like you say, in the changing room, and you'd have heard from speaking to Geezer as well, there was none of us ever getting carried away with that. And our supporters can be the best as well, and they're just wanting us to do well and getting excited about things. But things can change so quickly. Like the 2-week break, their teams are getting more training under their belt, starting to gather a bit of momentum, and you can see how tough it is. On any given day, any team can catch you, never mind the quality of opposition you're meeting in Division 1, like Monaghan, our top class side. You never get anything easy off them. A complete battle we had with them. And then the same with Mayo, season campaigners as well. I've been at the top table, top 2 or 3 teams in Ireland for the last 10 years. So we were never getting ahead of ourselves that way. And ultimately in Division 1, your first thing is always to get yourself safe with enough points, and then you can start to look upwards and build from there.
I think that probably was the target coming in this year, or was it that you wanted to stay up? And I suppose after the good start, is that still the target? Because I don't think these are mathematically safe yet with 3 games left. I know Dublin are on no points. I think Kildare are on 2. maybe Tyrone on 3 and Donegal the same. They're on 5 as Armagh. Is that still the target to be safe? There's no other discussion really.
No, yeah, like the last year, obviously that mini league that you talked about, like it was fairly cutthroat in terms of wanting to stay in the division. It was like a mini Ulster Championship, and it was a big thing for us to win that playoff game. We felt hard enough done by to be in it, but we produced a good performance against Roscommon to stay up, and that was important because we knew we would get the full league campaign this year with the pre-season under our belts and everything. So, we trained and prepared hard to be ready for this National League. And like you ask any team in the top division, like the first thing is just to get that safety secured, because they're brilliant games to prepare you for later in the year, but you want to stay at that level, like especially for us as a development team in that first full campaign Division 1, we just want more and more of this in terms of those games you're getting, those sort of high pressure tight games that you're trying to learn from. So the big thing for us, like you say, is staying there, and then after that it's just about taking sort of each game as it comes and see what comes of it then and getting ready for championship.
And you have another massive 3 or 4 weeks coming with Kildare, Kerry and Donegal all lined up. And I suppose at the start, Kildare would have been one that Armagh fans picked out that, that was at home particularly, that was one Armagh should be winning. But with the result at the weekend, Kildare beating Dublin, everything's going well for Kildare at the minute. I know they're only in 2 points, but they've showed that they can compete at this level. They've beaten Dublin. They have a dream team management team in place. I'm sure that's one Armagh's not going to take lightly. And then of course Kerry flying at the minute on Donegal, notoriously difficult to beat in Ballybuffet. So another couple of big weeks coming, Roy.
I know it's funny, like the difference between perception and reality, like from what games are meant supposedly easier or potentially better chance of picking up points. Like the reality is so different. Like you say there, Kildare a massive result and they have a great new management team in. Always such a physically very powerful team, and like with a few absolute star forwards and stuff as well who are in great form. So like you'd be absolutely mad to take anyone lightly in this division. So we certainly won't be. And like it doesn't get any easier. You said Kerry, that should be a good occasion in athletic grounds as well. But again, these are the types of teams you want to test yourself against. And then obviously with Donegal last game in Ballybuffet, and 3 weeks later we'll be back in the same place for the championship. So like it's good exposure for us, but the first thing is us getting enough points on board to know we're safe, and that just all starts with Kildare. Like physically, the games week to week they're good. They can be demanding. Like we've done 2 at the break, and now we've just done 2 in a row, and another small break here to get some more training done and to get yourself prepared for 3 tough weeks of games. And the first all eyes in Kildare really from now.
And what's your thoughts on that 2 week break or the 1 week break? Sorry, Roy, I remember asking Aaron Kiernan after the Tyrone game, and he sort of said he doesn't like breaks, but if it's only a 1 week break, it doesn't really make that big of a difference. How do you feel about that 1 week break?
I'd agree, yeah. It's always it used to be like when you finish the league there was a big gap, and it can be very hard to fill in terms of knowing what to do with your training and how do you peak and stuff, where like 2 weeks allows you to maybe have a bit of downtime in the few days after the game and then go upwards in your training towards the weekend and stuff, and then taper it down as you get towards the game week then in the following one. So it isn't too difficult to manage, and maybe it gives the odd boys a chance to get injuries cleared up, or for people to come back from injuries to push on a wee bit with their fitness. So it can end up working in your favour. And then I suppose this time it'll be new to us again 3 weeks in a row, so it can be fairly heavy for the boys who are playing a lot. And when you're like me and getting a bit older, the legs last that wee bit longer into the week. But it's good. Like players want games, like that's what it's all about. And you just want to enjoy them because it goes by in a flash.
And finally, Rory, I suppose everything that we've been discussing and everything that has happened in the past couple of months, it's all targeting towards the championship. You have, as you mentioned, you have Donegal the last round of the league, and 3 weeks later the same fixture, the same venue, only in the championship. Is that the number one target? I know we spoke about looking to be safe in the league and securing Division 1 football, but I suppose you're probably judged on championship football, and that's what everything's aiming for.
Yeah, ultimately you are judged in championship football. Like the league has become so important and for so many teams, and obviously with the new structures and stuff next year it'll become even more important. But like we all grow up wanting to win championships. Like I was talking about that Armagh team from the 99 to whatever years in the 2000s, and like it was championship football that we all loved on those big days, and that's what the people and supporters and players dream of winning. So that's where the big focus will be ultimately. Now there isn't the same gap as there would be, where it's almost like a split season within the intercounty, like of league and championship. It's a fairly quick turnover, which might do us no harm. You just hopefully keep going with the momentum of the league and stuff. But that's where we want to win, and like such a tough place to go in Ballybofey as well. We saw that for Tyrone at the weekend as well, Tyrone Donegal. Just usually difficult weather conditions and stuff, and they're such a brilliant record at home. So we know that we haven't delivered as a team in the Ulster Championship the way we should have. Like there's a few near misses there in the last couple of years with Cavan in 19, and certainly a poor performance against Donegal in 20, and then like a great game last year that we just came out on the wrong side of again against Monaghan. So we really, as a team, we know we want to deliver in Championship as well. But as always with the Ulster Championship, you just have to go one at a time, and it doesn't get any tougher than Donegal away.
And is this the strongest Ulster Championship you've maybe played in, Rory? Because there's so much talk about, the top 5 teams potentially all going for Ulster Championship, and depending what podcast you're listening to or what you're reading, 5 All-Ireland contenders apparently in Ulster as well. So you've Donegal, obviously Tyrone, Monaghan, Armagh, Derry, I suppose, are the 5 being talked up. Is this the most competitive Ulster Championship you've seen in your time?
I'd say it probably is. Like everyone looked at what Tyrone did last year and they realised like obviously what a quality side Tyrone are, but also the opportunity that there is there to go on and win something. So like there's been those 3 big teams that have been at the top table really for the last 6-7 years: Tyrone, Donegal, and Monaghan. And like you say, we've obviously been up in Division 1 this year trying to push hard, and Derry have been doing some brilliant work too. They look like they're pushing hard for promotion to Division 1 as well. Into that then you've Antrim too, who are doing really well under McGinley and who pushed us to the pin of our collar last year in the Ulster Championship. So there's just nothing taken for granted. Like any team, I suppose it's the beauty of the Ulster Championship, and it's the strongest province in terms of its competitiveness and why each team on any given day would back themselves to beat the other. And that's a great championship. That's the way it should be. You never get anything easy. So I'd say every team's like going out at the start of it saying like, why not us?
Rory, great. Thanks for your time. We'll be back on Thursday's show, and we'll be previewing all the action. The minors get their league underway. The under-20s are back in action again after beating Westmeath at the weekend. The ladies, they go to Monaghan in the last round of the group stages of the league, while the hurlers face Roscommon in Athletic Grounds on Sunday. So Rory, thanks for coming on, and hopefully we will get another couple of appearances out of you in the next few years.
Thanks, Sean. Good man.